Hello there, my sleepy fellows. Tonight, we open a soft, enchanted chapter of the magical world you know so well, but this time, it glows in a rather curious way. A story whispered among the candles, wrapped in warm corridors and flickering lantern light, where time doesn't race forward, but gently stirs, and sometimes, just sometimes, flows backward. This is the tale of Candlelight, a candlelight that didn't just glow, it reversed. Its flame danced back into the wick, its shadows undid themselves, and in doing so, it softly unraveled a quiet little mystery no one expected to find on just another calm evening at Hogwarts. But don't worry, dear one, this story doesn't rush, and it never shouts. It simply invites you to breathe slow, listen close, and gently follow the warm trail of wonder that winds through corridors and staircases, through dreams and discoveries. Before we begin, if stories like these help you sleep, help you smile, or even just help you feel warm inside, you're always welcome here. You can hit the bell icon or leave a quiet little like, so you'll always know when a new magical tale is ready to find you. Now, let the evening settle. We find ourselves once again inside the castle that hums with 100 years of secrets, the beloved Hogwarts school of witchcraft and wizardry. But tonight, it isn't echoing with lessons or laughter. No, tonight, Hogwarts is wrapped in a calm, comforting hush. Outside, the sky is soft with clouds the color of parchment, and the black lake barely stirs. From within the tall windows of the castle, warm candlelight glows like honey behind glass. Inside the stone halls, the torches burn a little lower, and the suits of armor seem to be dozing, their visors lowered slightly, as if even they, too, are ready for bed. The Gryffindor common room is quiet, its fireplace crackling with a low, gentle rhythm. The armchairs have welcomed their usual sleepy students, some wrapped in scarves, some reading books with titles that glow faintly under candlelight. A plate of half-finished treacle tart rests on a small table beside the fire, untouched for hours now. The portraits lining the walls have mostly dozed off, their snores soft and comforting, like wind brushing velvet curtains. The enchanted ceiling above them hums faintly, showing a patch of the cloudy sky, starlit and serene. Somewhere nearby, an owl hoots once, and a clock ticks gently, but neither demands attention. They're part of the night's lullaby, and somewhere, in the quiet flicker of a single forgotten candle, something begins to happen, something very small, very subtle, and very backward. But that, dear one, is for just a little later. For now, let's get cozy, let's stay warm, and slowly drift into the magic together. The candlelight is waiting. On this quiet evening in Hogwarts, when the corridors breathed only the sounds of flickering flames and faraway owl wings, there were 3 students still gently awake, unaware that tonight would bring a mystery so small, so silent, that even dreams might miss it. The first was Harry Potter, curled up in the corner armchair of the Gryffindor common room. His glasses were slightly tilted, as they often were when he was deep in thought, and a half-read book about magical misfires rested on his lap. he wasn't really reading, not tonight. Instead, he seemed to be watching the fire. Or perhaps it was watching him. His emerald eyes shimmered in the low firelight, calm for once, far from battle or prophecy. He was safe and still, and dreaming while awake. Near him, sprawled on the rug with parchment and a quill dancing gently of its own accord, was Hermione Granger. Even now, with no homework due and no deadline looming, she couldn't resist organizing her notes. She whispered little charms under her breath, soft, tidy ones. Not for power, but for peace. Her hair was a sleepy halo of curls and candlelight, and her gaze was full of focus and fondness. Once in a while, she looked up and smiled at the fire, or maybe at Harry, and then quietly returned to her self-set tasks. Ron Weasley was there too, of course, slouched in the armchair nearest the fire, already slipping in and out of dozes. His long legs dangled over the side, and one slipper had fallen to the floor. A faded Chudley Cannon's blanket was draped over him, embroidered with moving players who now seemed just as tired as their owner. Every so often, Ron would murmur something half-dreamed, blink one eye open, then smile to himself and settle back down. Peace suited him. So did this quiet. Somewhere in the shadows, Crookshanks padded softly from one corner to another, his tail twitching at nothing, or perhaps at something only he could see. He paused once beneath a candle on the far wall, and his golden eyes watched it flicker, and then there was one more presence, not a person, not quite, but a flame, a small, hovering candle flame at the very edge of the room, tucked into a bronze holder on the mantel. It had been burning for hours. No one had noticed it when they came in, but now it seemed to glow with a different kind of warmth, as if it too were thinking, remembering, preparing. These were the ones who would soon witness something very quiet and very strange, but not yet. For now, the fire crackled softly, the books hummed gently, and in the hush of the common room, surrounded by soft breath and softened thoughts, the characters of our story waited, as peaceful and unaware as you, dear listener, are meant to be right now. Let's follow them gently into the glow. The hour had passed into velvet stillness. Outside, the windows of Gryffindor Tower held the reflection of flickering stars and candlelight, as though the sky had dipped into the castle for a rest. Most of the school had gone quiet, not with fear, but with contentment. Only the soft breaths of enchanted portraits and the distant creak of old wooden beams kept time now, and in the heart of the common room, the golden glow of the fire swayed gently, as if breathing along with the room itself. Harry turned a page in his book, though he hadn't read the last one, and glanced up again. Something tugged at the edge of his attention. Not sharp, just subtle, a nudge in the atmosphere, like a whisper that hadn't yet been spoken. It was the candle, not the fire in the hearth, but the small, round flame in the bronze holder on the far wall, the one Crookshanks had paused beneath earlier. At first, Harry thought maybe the draft had shifted it, but no, it was moving, but not flickering. The candle was glowing in reverse, its flame, still lit and bright, was curling inward instead of upward. The golden orange light swirled downward, as if being drawn back into the wax rather than escaping from it. Tiny wisps of firelight unraveled like threads into the center of the wick, coiling gently with the hush of magic. Harry blinked, rubbed his eyes, but when he looked again, it hadn't stopped. It wasn't an illusion. He stood slowly, careful not to wake Ron, who had begun softly snoring under his Quidditch blanket. Hermione, too, was hunched over a scroll, half dreaming. One of her curls twitched when she shifted in her sleep, but she didn't stir. So Harry crossed the room, slowly, softly. The candle's reverse burning didn't throw shadows. In fact, it seemed to draw them in. The closer Harry came, the more he noticed how the other candles along the wall flickered normally, but this one seemed to hum differently. It was like watching time itself forget what direction to flow. He whispered, "Lumos," and let his wand tip glow faintly. The light from his wand cast no reflection on the flame. Even more strange, the candle wasn't melting. Not even a drop of wax had pooled in the tray beneath it. It was as if the flame had never burned forward at all, as if it had always been waiting to rewind. And then, the air around it shimmered, just for a moment, no more than a heartbeat, and from the center of the candle's flame, a shape began to form. It was no bigger than a match head at first, soft and hazy, but gradually it unfolded like a petal in the breeze. It was a memory, or the ghost of one. A tiny projection, no larger than a walnut, floated above the flame. It shimmered softly, and within it, Harry saw, unmistakably, a younger version of himself. He was sitting in this very same room, in this very same chair, but years younger, and he was smiling. Hermione had woken up without meaning to. Her eyes fluttered open and locked on the floating image. She didn't gasp, didn't shout. Instead, she whispered, "What in Merlin's name?" And then she slowly sat up. The memory flickered once and then shimmered again, changing. Now Ron appeared in it too, bounding through the common room in pajamas, holding something above his head and laughing. Harry, the younger version, was chasing him. The scene replayed like a warm echo, soft around the edges, like watching a memory through candle smoke. "What is this?" Hermione whispered, coming to stand beside him. "I think," Harry said softly, "it's the past, ours, from this room." They stared in awe. The projection began cycling through more memories, short, soft, familiar moments. Harry and Hermione in front of the fire, whispering about exams, Ron falling asleep with a chocolate frog still in his hand. The trio huddled over a marauder's map, eyes wide with mischief. All of them had happened in this exact room, and all of them lit by this very candle. "I've never read about anything like this," Hermione murmured. "It's like the candle records what happens in front of it, but backward?" Harry nodded slowly. "And now it's playing them, in reverse, unfolding them, like it remembers more than we do." They stood there, the two of them, watching themselves, smaller, lighter versions, flicker and fade gently through time. "I wonder," Hermione said slowly, "if it only shows things to those who need to remember. Harry's gaze softened. He watched an image of himself helping Ron after a Quidditch injury. Hermione patting Crookshanks while reading aloud from her arithmancy notes. I didn't even realize how much I'd forgotten, Harry said, barely audible. Then the candle stilled, its glow folded into itself one last time, and then everything vanished. The room returned to stillness. The candle remained lit, now normal, flickering gently. No trace of magic remained on its surface. Harry turned to Hermione. It stopped. Hermione stared for a long moment, then gave a soft smile. Maybe that was all it wanted to show us, or remind us. At that moment, Ron stirred and stretched, yawning wide. "Oi," he muttered, eyes bleary. "Why are you two staring at a wall candle?" Harry and Hermione exchanged a glance, the kind that needed no words. "Nothing," Hermione said gently. "Just candlelight." Ron shrugged, mumbled something about toast, and promptly turned over, back into his sleep. But the other two stayed standing for just a little longer, and as the candle flickered on, now perfectly ordinary, a feeling lingered in the air, soft as parchment and sweet as butterbeer. That somewhere, quietly, something magical had remembered them, and offered them the chance to remember too. Not the battles, or the dangers, or the grand stories sung in the great hall, but the small things, the gentle things, the candlelit things, the kind that made Hogwarts feel like home. The morning after the candle's strange memory revealed itself, a tender hush lingered over Gryffindor Tower. The kind of silence not born from sleep, but from wonder. Harry, Hermione, and even Ron, who now remembered the candle too, though he claimed it must have been a dream, moved through the day with a sense of softness, not quite confusion, not worry, just something unspoken nestled in their thoughts. They had not told anyone else about the candle. Hermione had taken a few notes, of course, but even she hesitated to put too much of it into words. Some things, she'd whispered the night before, are meant to be felt before they're explained. Harry agreed, and so did the castle, it seemed, because the next magical moment didn't announce itself with thunder or enchanted explosions. It arrived quietly, like a misplaced memory returning to the wrong drawer. It happened just after lunch, as they passed through a quiet corridor on the 3rd floor. Ron was trying to balance an apple on his wand. Hermione was talking about a theory involving ancient enchantments embedded in candles. And Harry saw Dumbledore, not a memory, not a painting, the headmaster himself, or rather, a figure so identical it sent a chill down Harry's arms. He stood at the end of the corridor, hands folded behind his back, long robes rippling gently in the non-existent breeze. "Professor?" Harry called. Hermione paused mid-sentence. Ron dropped the apple with a startled thump, but the figure did not respond. Instead, it turned, walked, calmly, purposefully, around a bend at the far end of the hallway. No sound, no echo of footsteps, just soft movement, as if the castle made space for him. Harry was already walking. "Harry!" Hermione called. "What?" "I saw him," Harry whispered. "Dumbledore, I swear I just saw him." "But we just left him in the Great Hall," Ron said, catching up. "I know." They reached the bend in the corridor, only to find it empty. No sign of robes, no trace of footprints, just an old tapestry fluttering slightly, showing Barnabas the Barmy being taught ballet by trolls. Hermione frowned. Maybe it was... But before she could finish, a door they hadn't noticed before shimmered faintly into view. A circular wooden door with no knob, just a gentle silver handle shaped like a crescent moon. It hadn't been there a moment ago. Ron blinked. That wasn't... No, Harry said. It wasn't. He reached for the handle. The moment his fingers touched the silver, the wood beneath it warmed. Not burning, but alive. The handle shifted slightly beneath his grip, and the door opened with the softest sigh. Beyond it lay a room none of them had ever seen before. It wasn't a classroom or a storage room. It was round, entirely round, like a marble dome turned inward, and inside was another Dumbledore. This one sat in a high-backed chair near a window that looked out over a starry sky, even though it was still daylight outside. He looked up and smiled. "Ah," he said, "there you are." Harry froze. Ron grabbed Hermione's arm. "Is this real? Tell me this is real." Hermione's eyes were wide, but steady. "I don't think this is the Dumbledore we know." The man in the chair gave a quiet chuckle. "Quite right, Miss Granger," he said. "And no, I'm not a ghost, nor a portrait. I'm not even a memory, exactly." He stood slowly, robes falling in graceful waves around him. "I'm what you might call an echo." "An echo of what?" Harry asked. The figure, who looked so perfectly like Albus Dumbledore that even the half-moon spectacles gleamed the same way, gestured to the window. The choices he made, the thoughts he never shared aloud, the moments too small to be remembered, but too important to be lost. He walked across the room with a strange lightness. "This room, you see, exists for such echoes. Hogwarts remembers things that no one else does, and occasionally it lets them be seen again." Hermione was now scribbling in a small notebook, though her hands trembled slightly. "You're part of him?" she asked. "I am not him," the echo said, "but I am not him either." Ron whispered, "That's helpful." The echo turned, smiling with genuine warmth. "I remember sitting in this room once when I was headmaster, long ago. I thought I was alone, but perhaps the castle listened. Perhaps it remembered, and now you've found it." "Why us?" Harry asked. The echo's eyes softened. "Because Hogwarts trusts you." There was a moment of silence. Outside the impossible window, stars twinkled in patterns that didn't match any known constellation. Then, the echo turned toward Harry. "You're still looking for answers, aren't you?" Harry nodded slowly. "I always feel like I'm missing something, like there are pieces I should understand, but they're just out of reach." The echo placed a hand over his chest. "Sometimes, the pieces are not lost. They are simply waiting for quiet." He gestured to the window. "Do you hear that?" The three students listened. A soft, rhythmic hum, like the castle breathing. "That is Hogwarts remembering," the echo said. "When the world forgets, this place remembers. Not just people, but feelings. Kindness, regret, hope." Hermione stepped forward. "Are there more rooms like this?" The echo gave a small nod. "Yes, some you've seen, some you haven't. Some appear only once, some only to those who ask the right questions. Ron looked around. So this is what? A room that remembers Dumbledore? The echo smiled. Or perhaps a room where Dumbledore remembers you. The words settled over them like a blanket, warm, comforting, unfathomably deep. Harry wanted to ask more, so many more things, but just then, the echo began to fade. Not suddenly, like the candle the night before, the magic reversed gently, folding inward, one shimmer at a time. The echo raised a hand in parting. "Remember the quiet," he said. "It will lead you where noise cannot." And then he was gone. The room dimmed, and the door behind them opened on its own. They stepped back into the corridor, the door vanishing behind them as if it had never been there. Ron exhaled. "We definitely didn't imagine that." Hermione looked up and down the hall. "No, and I don't think Hogwarts is finished with us." Harry remained silent for a long time. He was remembering the candle, and now the echo, 2 moments of magic, not loud, not showy, but deeply meaningful. As they walked back toward the common room, the castle seemed to breathe around them again, a soft hum, a memory in motion, and somewhere far above, or perhaps deep below, another door waited to be noticed. As the days passed, the mystery only deepened, and yet, in the soft rhythm of Hogwarts life, nothing ever truly felt hurried. The soft whispers of students continued in the corridors, parchment rustled in the quiet of the library, and the gentle clinking of cutlery in the great hall echoed like a lullaby. But beneath it all, a question shimmered quietly, like the moonlight that danced across the black lake. Why had Albus Dumbledore been seen in 2 places at once? Harry, Ron, and Hermione chose to tread carefully, their inquiry wrapped in discretion. They understood the delicate line between curiosity and disruption, especially when it came to matters involving Dumbledore. So, they whispered their thoughts only in safe corners, between bookshelves, beneath the invisibility cloak, and near the warmth of the Gryffindor firelight. "Do you think he's using a time turner again?" Hermione asked one evening, her voice a soft blend of wonder and concern. Harry shook his head. "No, I don't think it's that. He looked too real in both places, not like someone looping time." Ron leaned back, staring at the enchanted ceiling that mirrored the cloudy sky outside. What if it's a spell? A new one? Something that creates a, echo of yourself? Hermione's brow furrowed as she flipped through the pages of advanced magical theory. That would be an extremely complex magical construct, but maybe. And so their days were filled with gentle exploration. Every quiet moment became a puzzle piece. They observed Dumbledore during lessons, his every glance, every word, every peculiar pause. But there was no sign of confusion in him. If anything, he seemed perfectly composed, as if entirely unaware that anyone had seen him elsewhere. That only made the mystery thicker, like fog rolling in across the forbidden forest. Their suspicions grew deeper one morning when Harry spotted something odd on a portrait frame in the Charms corridor. The gilded edge shimmered faintly, almost as if it was recently enchanted. The portrait within was blank, which in itself wasn't unusual. Some portraits only revealed their subjects at certain times or under certain conditions. But something about this one felt aware. That night, beneath the whispering canopy of the astronomy tower, they spoke again. "It's not about where Dumbledore was," Harry whispered. "It's about what he was doing. He wasn't teaching. He was walking, just walking, slowly, with his hand on the wall, like he was tracing something." Hermione blinked slowly, the stars reflected in her eyes, like someone trying to remember a path. Ron looked puzzled, or someone who forgot where he was going. But Harry didn't believe that. Not for Dumbledore, no. It felt purposeful, like he was searching. They decided to retrace the headmaster's steps from that evening, gently and carefully. Late the next night, under the shelter of the invisibility cloak, the trio wandered the upper levels of the castle. The air was calm, the halls lit only by the gentle glow of floating torches. It was like walking through a dream, past the Transfiguration classroom, down the 7th corridor, and then near a wall that led, seemingly, to nothing. Hermione paused. "This is where he stopped," she whispered. "Neville saw him standing here, just looking at the stone." They approached the wall. It was just stone and dust and silence. But when Harry reached out to touch it, the cool surface felt humming like a spell beneath the skin of the castle. Ron whispered, "What if the wall's not real, or not fully here?" Hermione pulled out her wand and gently cast Revelio. The stones shimmered faintly, like ripples across water, and for a fleeting second, they saw something behind it. Just a shape, perhaps a door, perhaps not. Then it vanished. None of them spoke for a long moment. "That wasn't just old magic," Hermione whispered. "That was Dumbledore's kind of magic, quiet, hidden in plain sight." But the moment was gone. The shimmer had faded, and they knew better than to push. The magic of Hogwarts, after all, responded not to force, but to patience. As the days passed, more whispers reached their ears, carefully carried by Ravenclaws and passed unknowingly by Hufflepuffs. Strange things were happening near the headmaster's tower, not dangerous, not loud, but curious. A quill that never stopped writing, a candle that flickered with blue instead of gold, a chessboard in the study that played itself without an opponent. They meant little on their own, but together, they painted the image of a place stirring quietly. And one evening, just before dusk, the Fat Friar mentioned something unusual to Hermione in passing. "I once saw 2 Dumbledores at a staff meeting," the ghost said wistfully, as if recalling an old dream. "I thought I'd floated through the same room twice." He had chuckled and drifted away, leaving only silence behind him. The trio didn't press him. They simply filed the moment away, like one more firefly in a jar of soft mysteries. A few nights later, during a quiet moment by the common room fire, Harry found himself staring at the window. The moon was high, casting silver lines across the stone floor. "What if we're looking at this all wrong?" he said quietly. Ron looked up. "How do you mean?" Harry's eyes didn't leave the stars. "What if it isn't about Dumbledore being in 2 places, but about time itself shifting? What if there's something folded, a part of Hogwarts caught between moments?" Hermione looked startled. "Like temporal echoes?" Harry nodded slowly. Ron frowned. Okay, but if that's true, then it's not Dumbledore moving. It's us walking into his past. Hermione's voice dropped. Or his future. A silence settled over them. It was a calming quiet, not fearful, just the weight of something bigger than their understanding. In the days that followed, they chose not to chase the mystery too aggressively. Hogwarts, they knew, often revealed itself in whispers, not shouts. And whatever was happening, whoever had seen Dumbledore in two places, it was unfolding at its own pace. Still, there were moments. A cup left warm in the staff room with no one inside. Footsteps echoing on an empty stairwell. A flash of blue robes vanishing around a corner where no corner should be. The castle was remembering something. Or perhaps someone. And as Harry sat once more beneath the great tree by the lake, with the sun beginning to dip below the hills, he felt a strange sense of peace. The mystery remained, but in some odd, inexplicable way. That was part of the magic. Not every question had to be solved. Some just had to be understood, and sometimes understanding meant letting go, for now. In the morning light, filtered through thick castle windows glazed with age, the corridors of Hogwarts stirred to bedtime with a subtle hum. Yet for Harry, Hermione, and Ron, the rest of the school faded into a blur of background sound. Their focus remained fixed on a deeper mystery, the second sighting of Dumbledore and the unanswered magic still clinging to that hallway like fog that refused to lift. They gathered once more in the library's quiet corner, where only the gentlest flipping of ancient pages interrupted the stillness. Hermione had already pulled a dozen books onto the table, each one tied to time magic, mirrors, or obscure transfigurations. I keep coming back to the idea that this wasn't time travel, Hermione whispered, brushing her hair behind her ear as she scanned a page filled with sketches of reflective enchantments. There was something different in the air. You felt it, didn't you? Ron looked up from a book he wasn't really reading. I felt like we weren't alone, not just us and him. It was like the castle itself knew something was happening. Harry nodded slowly, his brow furrowed, and Dumbledore didn't speak. He just looked at us, like he was trying to remember something he hadn't lived yet. That sentence hung in the air, like the echo of a spell. Hermione gently closed her book. Maybe we're asking the wrong question, she said softly. Maybe it's not about where that version of Dumbledore came from. Maybe it's about where he was going. They decided to explore, not just the corridor again, but every room connected to it. Hogwarts, ever shifting, had a way of answering its students' questions in riddles. And that morning, the castle seemed unusually open to revealing something. As they wandered deeper, doors they never noticed before creaked open on their own. Stone arches shimmered faintly as they passed beneath them, and in one alcove, a portrait of a long-forgotten witch stirred from her sleep and simply pointed without a word toward a staircase. The staircase, tucked behind a velvet tapestry of a thestral in moonlight, wound in a perfect circle downward. Dust clung to its banister, yet the steps were warm as if recently walked. They descended in silence, breath slowing, hearts beating softly in sync with their surroundings. Below, they found a rounded room lit by soft candlelight. It was not cold, despite its depth, and the air smelled of parchment and pine. At the center of the room stood a massive mirror, not the mirror of Erised, though it shared that haunting shimmer. This one had no ornate carvings or ancient Latin inscription, just a clean silver frame, wide and tall, and perfectly still. As they approached, the reflection did not immediately show them. Instead, it revealed the empty hallway from the night before. But something was moving. Harry's breath caught. In the mirror, Dumbledore's image appeared again, walking slowly, robes trailing, his figure flickering like candlelight caught in wind. But this time, he wasn't alone. Another figure walked beside him, younger, curiously familiar. Hermione stepped closer. That's Harry. The reflection showed Harry, slightly older, perhaps by only a few years, speaking to Dumbledore, his lips moving in slow motion. No sound reached them, but the conversation appeared heavy with emotion. Eyes locked, shoulders bowed, the trio watched in stunned silence. Ron's hand gripped the edge of a nearby bookshelf. "We're seeing a memory," he said. Hermione nodded. "No, something more than memory. A prophecy, maybe. A moment the castle wants to preserve." The mirror began to ripple, and the image faded. Now, it only showed their own reflections, pale and wide-eyed. Harry looked around. What do we do now? They had found answers, yes, but also more questions. Why had Hogwarts shown them this? Was this a possible future, a hidden past, or a loop in time so gentle that only the castle's own walls could sense it? Each of them made a choice that day. Hermione chose to stay in the library longer, searching through timelines recorded by Hogwarts' enchanted architects, names who never appeared on any official register, but whose spells still quietly shaped the school. Ron chose to speak to the portraits of past headmasters, hoping one of them might admit to seeing something unusual. Some did. Others merely blinked slowly, offering cryptic phrases like, "The walls whisper when the hour is right," and "Time is not a line here, it's a corridor with many doors." And Harry chose to return to the corridor at night, alone. He stood where he had seen Dumbledore. This time, he whispered nothing. He simply closed his eyes and listened. The wind through the stained glass windows, the soft tick of an old enchanted clock. A feeling, faint but unmistakable, settled in his chest, like someone had touched his shoulder without ever reaching out. He didn't understand everything, not yet, but he trusted Hogwarts, and he trusted Dumbledore wherever or whenever he was. And that was enough for now. Night fell softly over the castle again, the kind of night when even the wind outside seemed too gentle to stir the leaves. Hogwarts glowed in candlelight, subtle amber pools of warmth spilled from narrow windows and arched doorways. Somewhere high in the astronomy tower, a telescope turned with a slow, magical hum, aligning itself with the stars. But far below, in the corridor where everything began, Harry stood once more in stillness. He wasn't alone this time. Hermione and Ron had quietly followed, not with urgency, but with quiet understanding, like threads drawn back to the same magical needle. There was no plan, no whispered theory, only a shared sense that something was ready to reveal itself. Something had waited, gently, for them to return. The hallway looked unchanged, though tonight it held a peculiar hush. The paintings on the walls, even the ones who typically snored or mumbled in their frames, had gone still, eyes closed, as if asleep, or perhaps in quiet reverence. Then, from nowhere in particular, a light flickered, faint at first, like a breath catching. It came from a single candle resting on a narrow ledge of stone near the wall. The candle had not been there before, and stranger still, it was burning in reverse. The flame danced downward, drawing wax upward like a ribbon, curling back into its form. Each flicker seemed to undo time, reshaping the melted stem into a perfect white taper once more. As it rewound, the hallway shimmered faintly, like air above warm tea. Hermione whispered, "It's a memory unraveling." Ron frowned, squinting at the flame. Or something returning. Then came the softest sound, footsteps, not from the far end of the corridor, but beside them, and then they saw him. Albus Dumbledore, in his robes of twilight blue, stepped forward from the shadows. Not young, not old, but somehow both. His expression was peaceful, tinged with a curious fondness, as if he had known they'd be there all along. He looked directly at Harry. "I thought you might find your way here," he said, his voice like worn parchment and cello strings. Deep, soft, knowing. Harry felt no urge to speak, only to listen. Dumbledore turned his gaze to the candle, now standing whole again, its reverse flame finally still. "This," he said, "is one of Hogwarts' oldest enchantments, a memory flame, planted centuries ago, not to illuminate the present, but to echo the moment when understanding becomes clearer than knowledge." Hermione tilted her head. "So, it's not showing the past?" "Not quite," Dumbledore replied. "It reveals clarity, and clarity, my dear Miss Granger, can visit from many directions, past, future, or what rests quietly in between." He turned back toward Harry. "You felt the hesitation, haven't you? The sense that something was unfinished, something unsaid between us." Harry nodded. "I thought maybe I imagined it." "You didn't." Dumbledore's eyes glistened in the candle's glow. "There was a conversation we were always meant to have. Not when you were a student, nor when you were older, but now, here, in a space the castle itself has preserved for us." The hallway seemed to bend slightly, as if drawing them closer into its memory. "I wanted to tell you," Dumbledore said gently, "that you were never just chosen, Harry. You were trusted." Harry's breath caught softly. "There is magic," Dumbledore continued, "older than any wand, stronger than any prophecy. It is the kind of magic that binds people across time, the kind that lets us return in quiet moments to say what matters most." He stepped closer, laying a hand on Harry's shoulder, light as mist. "I believed in you, not because of a scar or a destiny written before your birth, but because of who you chose to be when no one was watching." Hermione's eyes shimmered. Ron had gone utterly quiet, his usual quips folded neatly away by the weight of the moment. Harry whispered, I never got to say goodbye." "You didn't need to," Dumbledore said, "but I'm glad you came." The candle glowed brighter for a moment, then flickered gently, its flame still reversed, but slower now, as though content. Hermione stepped closer. "Will we remember this?" Dumbledore's smile was small but full. "In the quiet corners of your thoughts, when everything else stills, you will know Hogwarts remembers for you." He stepped back, robes gliding over the floor like water parting in a stream. "And now," he said softly, "the castle will close this chapter, but not to hide it, to protect it." The walls pulsed faintly with golden light. The portraits flickered to life again, but said nothing, only smiling with an odd, peaceful pride. Dumbledore offered one final look, eyes warm as starlight. "Go gently," he said. "There is still much light ahead." And with that, he faded, not abruptly, but like candle smoke curling into a warm ceiling beam, gently, naturally, completely. The hallway returned to stillness. But now, it felt full, like a room where something important had been remembered. Ron broke the silence. "Blimey," Hermione leaned against the wall, tears in her eyes. I think I'll remember that forever." Harry stood a moment longer, then nodded. "So will I." They left the corridor slowly, with quiet steps, feeling not lighter, but more complete, as though a door had closed behind them, but a window had opened inside. The soft hush of the castle welcomed them back as they stepped away from the candlelit corridor. No grand staircases moved beneath their feet. No enchanted suits of armor rattled with surprise. The castle seemed to understand something meaningful had just passed, and it responded in kind, quiet, reverent, letting the moment breathe. Harry, Hermione, and Ron made their way through the dimly lit halls, not speaking much. There was no need. The candle that burned in reverse, Dumbledore's gentle words, the sense of time folding itself in a way only Hogwarts could allow. These had left an imprint too tender for casual conversation. Outside, the moon had risen, casting silver light across the stone courtyards. A breeze drifted in through the stained glass windows, cool and faintly scented with dew and the distant whispers of the forbidden forest. The moving staircases adjusted themselves slowly, as if tired too, settling in for the night. In the common room, the fire still burned low, its embers glowing like sleepy eyes half closed. Hermione curled up in the corner seat beneath the bookshelf, pulling a blanket over her knees, her fingers gently holding the spine of an unopened book. She didn't read. She simply sat, eyes gazing into the flames, letting their memory play over and over in her thoughts like a lullaby. Ron stretched out on the rug near the hearth, arms behind his head. "You know," he said softly, "I don't really understand everything that happened, but I don't think I need to." Harry smiled faintly, settling into the armchair. "I think it wasn't about understanding. It was about feeling it, letting it happen." The warmth of the fire was soothing, but there was something even more comforting lingering in the room, like an invisible blanket wrapped around them, woven from memory and magic, and the quiet presence of those who had once walked the same halls. The candlelight in the common room flickered gently, but none of the flames burned in reverse. And yet, the magic from that hallway still lingered, not in sight, but in feeling. A warmth in the chest, a lightness behind the eyes, a sense that something had been healed quietly between the folds of time. Outside the window, the castle stood bathed in starlight. The whomping willow rested, still and patient. The black lake reflected the moon like a glassy mirror. Not a creature stirred. The whole of Hogwarts was at peace. Harry leaned back, his eyes beginning to close. It wasn't just the events of the night that made him sleepy. It was the calm that followed, a deep, grounding calm that came only after something truly meaningful had found its place. He thought of the candle, its flame curling inward, gently reversing the tide of time. He thought of Dumbledore's voice, not as it was in life, but how it had sounded tonight, soft, loving, timeless. He thought of the castle, the way it remembered things people had forgotten, the way it saved echoes of moments too precious to lose. Hermione sighed quietly, her head now resting against the seat's cushion. Ron had already begun to snore, softly, like someone who hadn't meant to fall asleep, but had been carried off by the comfort of the hour. Harry looked at them both, his two closest friends, his companions through everything, and felt the kind of gratitude that doesn't need to be spoken aloud. He closed his eyes at last, and just before the world slipped into dreams, he whispered under his breath, "Thank you, Professor." And in a quiet corridor deep in the heart of Hogwarts, the reversed candle flickered one final time, then stilled. Not extinguished, not gone, only waiting for the next time someone needed to remember something important. Up in the dormitory, the night wrapped itself around the room like a soft blanket. The curtains around each four-poster bed were drawn, fluttering ever so slightly with the gentle hush of the castle's nighttime breath. All was calm now, deeply, quietly calm. Harry lay beneath his blankets, the faint glow of the moon casting delicate patterns on the stone wall beside him. The warmth of the evening still lingered, not just in the fire, now long faded, but in the heart, in the gentle unfolding of something mysterious, something kind. The castle had spoken in its own quiet way tonight, through a backward candle, through a moment borrowed from time, through the presence of someone long gone, but never truly lost. Hogwarts, after all, never forgot those who loved it. Its walls remembered, its stones listened, and its corridors sometimes whispered truths that even time itself had tucked away. Harry's eyes fluttered shut. He could still hear the echo of Dumbledore's voice in that corridor, could still feel the hush that followed it. Not every mystery needed solving. Some were simply meant to be felt, to be cherished like a dream you didn't want to wake from. Downstairs, the reversed candle had gone quiet again, its light folded gently inward, waiting for the next heart in need of comfort, the next soul seeking peace. The stars above the castle glowed softly. The trees beyond the lake swayed in a rhythm only the wind understood. And somewhere, in a secret corner of the school, where magic moved slowly and sweetly, a candle waited, not to be lit, but to glow in reverse, only when it was truly needed. So now, dear listener, Let your thoughts rest. Let the warmth of the castle surround you. Let the hush of the night carry you softly away, like floating on the wings of a quiet spell. You're safe here. The magic is still with you, and whatever mysteries may rise with the morning light. For now, you are simply where you're meant to be, wrapped in calm, surrounded by quiet wonder. Sleep gently and dream with the candlelight.